were born outside of the country. So that we have more than 50%, more than half of the people who live in Toronto were born themselves outside the country, and if we add people to that whose parents were born outside the country, which probably includes some of you, then it's even higher than that. So that's a blessing that we have, that people have come from all over the world. This city used to be quite small, and it's grown and it's grown and it's grown. And it's grown not so much because people who lived here before were having a lot of children, it grew because people came here and chose to come here from other countries all over the world. And what's then even more important and more special about Toronto is that when people get here, we make a better effort than many other places in the world, not perfect, but a better effort to make sure everybody is respected, everybody is embraced, everybody is included. And that applies to every aspect of life. Now, we're not perfect at that. There are still people who are discriminated against. There are still people who are left behind. And part of what we like to say that we try to do in Canada and in Toronto is to reach our hand out to people who've fallen behind a little bit because they're having a hard time and help them to come forward so that they can all have the same opportunity as everybody else. And we've got a lot of work to do on that. You have to work at that every single day here at City Hall and in schools and at home to make sure everybody is treated respectfully and equally. And one of the ways we do that is by celebrating things like Black History Month. Now, why do we have a Black History Month? Well, we've had a Black African Canadian community in Toronto for a long, long time. In fact, the first member of Toronto City Council was a man named William Hubbard in the 1800s. He was the first person with black skin that got elected to the City Council of Toronto. So there have been people who have accomplished many things in the city who happen to have black skin for a long time. However, sometimes the successes of people like that and many others have not been celebrated as much. And to be quite frank with you, there have been other things that have happened even here in this city, but certainly in other countries that are part of history and that we have to remember so that we don't repeat them, we don't continue to do them. There have been people, up until sometimes very recently, that have been discriminated against in the city because their skin is a certain color. We don't believe that's right. And so by being reminded of things that happened in history where people were discriminated against based on their religion or their skin color or where they were born or what language they spoke, or what their sexual orientation was, we say that that's not right because it isn't right. It's not how we live as Canadians. And by reminding ourselves of some of the history of the bad stories, like the wars and things you study about, we're reminded of the things we don't want to do. And that's very important to us in this city, and that's why we celebrate Black History Month, to celebrate the great achievements of people who had black skin because sometimes they were not recognized the way they should have been, and at the same time to celebrate some of the things that happened that you'd like to forget, but you should never forget, so that you make sure it doesn't happen again. The last thing I've been saying, and it's even more important as you get older, and this group's a little older than some of the other kids I've been talking to today, is that, and it's something I hope your teachers are telling you every day, and teachers will play a huge, important role in your life. It's something I hope your parents are telling you every day. But the other thing that goes with that in this country is that you can be whatever you want to be. And I hope by now you've started to think about some things that you might want to be, things plural, because you won't have narrowed it down to a list of one yet. Most people won't have. But I hope if you want to be an astronaut, a police officer, a carpenter, a doctor, a lawyer, a business executive, a teacher, whatever, what is it?
Mayor.
I'm not sure you want to be the mayor, but that's fine. But that you make sure you focus on that, but also make sure, most important of all, you don't let anybody tell you that you can't be that because you're this or because you're that. You can't be that. You can be whatever you want to be. And that's the great story of this country. The greatest story of this country is you can be. And just remember, you keep focused on that and ask for help if you think you need help. Make friends, go up and ask people for help. You know, some of the greatest happiness that I've had is when younger people have asked me for help getting to be something, and they think maybe I can give them a little bit of advice or introduce them to somebody, and you have to ask sometimes because people won't always make an offer. I'm happy to answer a few questions that you might have about my job, about Black History Month, about the city, about City Hall, and then I have to go off to see the press for my daily encounter with them. So you could be first.
Hi. So what my question was that I did a speech, and it's like, why can't Black History Month be fully integrated into Ontario curriculum?
Well, I think it sort of has been now in the sense that it's certainly an official event that's been endorsed. It started off right here at City Hall, the first place in Canada that had it. Then it went to Ontario, and then it went to the Parliament of Canada. And I think it is now certainly an officially recognized thing that happens every year. I don't know if it's been officially put into the curriculum, but my sense is that in every school, something is done to acknowledge and commemorate Black History Month, to celebrate some of the stories that I talked about earlier, and hopefully to remind ourselves of some of the mistakes we've made in the past. But you know, that is a decision that rests with the school board, and I'm not trying to sort of offload it to them, but they would make the decision as to whether to put it into the curriculum or not. But I think I'm pretty confident from all the schools I've been to during Black History Months in previous years that most schools acknowledge it in some way and have some kind of lesson or event to celebrate Black History Month, and I hope that's making the kind of positive contribution that I said I wanted to see. Yes.
What do you envision to be the perfect community?
The perfect community? Well, I mean, the perfect community is one where first it starts with equality of opportunity, equality of access to opportunity. So that what I said about people being whatever they want it to be, it can actually come true. And I think it can come true, but of course the difference in it being likely for some people as opposed to others is very significant. And we have to try and close that gap so that it really is, possible, everything taken into account for people to be that. Because, so for example, if you take some of the neighborhoods in Toronto where people are having more difficulty with their housing and they don't